Alright, I'm just going to be going over a few new features that I've been adding to Rig Helper, and most of it has to deal with animation with the rig. So I'm just going to load up Rig Helper, and everything pretty much looks the same until you get to the animation tab. And now we have some extra features here. So a lot of times when you're animating, you'll be working with reference characters. So here's a namespace input box here, so you can always use that. Just remember that it has to be the exact name of the namespace. So if your namespace is called character, it's most likely going to be character with a colon. And an easy way to check that is just to click on any part of the rig and it will precede the original name, and you'll be able to see what the namespace is actually called. In this case, I do not have any namespaces set up because I don't need them. Moving along, everything, this line looks familiar. It just has to do with the face rig. So you have zeros now, which just zeroes everything out, which I didn't have before, and it's just a simple feature that should make your life a little bit easier. And we also have mirror facial controls, which works like it always has. You can reset the source, and it'll kind of swap it like that, and you can go right to left. You can pretty much have any possibility for mirroring facial controls. So that's there. Alright, gotta get rid of that namespace. One thing that I will say is that I have very little error checking at this point, so if you're going to be using this, you have to be doing it exactly as you should. I will add more errors checking in the future, but for now it's going to be a very delicate process. I shouldn't say that, it's just you have to keep track of what you're doing and make sure you're doing it right. Okay, so the next feature that we have here is some body controlling functions. We have zeros, which I believe was always there. Was there in the last version of Rig Helper, so that's not new. Just zeros out your controls. We have mirror body controls, which I think was there as well. So it just allows you to mirror your pose. And this is a new feature actually called opposite animation, and it is pretty much only useful for people who are working on games. So let's say you have a run left animation, and you have something like this. It's pretty bad, but it works for this example. So now you want to make a run right, but you don't want to redo all this animation. You'd like to just reuse it. So what opposite animation does is it basically just bakes the animation and then runs a mirror body controls for each frame, and it uses your time slider. So make sure that the frames in your time slider are right. So in my case it's 1 to 19, which is right for me. So I can just go ahead and click opposite animation, it'll bake the frames, and then do a mirror body controls. So now we have the exact opposite animation, which is a huge time saver. So that is cool. And next thing we got is a pose library, which is in the very early stages, but it does work. So basically, you want to make sure that your project is set if you're using the pose library. So set project, make sure it's set to the right one, because it will use that information to save out the pose files. So we have a pose here. This is idle. So I can just type idle, save that pose, and load poses. We'll load all the poses that I have. I already have some here, but those will be saved in your project folder and in rh_poses. And if we open up one of these files, we can see that it's just a simple text file with some information in it. One thing to keep track of right now is that if you're going to be using this, make sure that the character that you're using it on has the same number of spine joints. I haven't really found a workaround for that yet, but eventually I plan on making a more robust system. But at the moment, just make sure that the character that you are importing the pose to has the same number of spine joints. So we can load some of these poses. Oops. Import pose, I mean. And we have brown best aim idle here. And of course my rig is broken, but that's a skinning problem. Call its charge. Brown best idle. She's aiming up for this one because it's an aim offset. Call its idle. I think that one's actually broken, so. And here's the idle that we just saved out earlier. So basically all you have to do is make a pose, save it. We'll call this one default. Save pose. Then you can reload the poses and you have it here. And you can just import poses. So that's a nice little feature that I plan on writing a lot more code for. Like I said, you have to do everything exactly, or else you will run into problems. The next thing I have down here is kind of just particular to my workflow, but I figured I would put it in there in case someone else found it useful. So it's called Save Anim FBX. So let's open up an animation file. Let's say walk forward. And again, this function uses your time slider. So make sure that your time slider is correct for your animation. And basically this script just selects your reference joint and exports it for a game animation. So just all you have to do is click this button and it will go ahead and just save out that animation. And it saves it to scenes, Animation FBX. So it'll be right here, walk forward. And if we open that up, we'll see that it's just a skeleton, which is what you want for a game engine. Walk forward. There it is. So that's just a little time saver there. It eliminates a few steps, and I find that it actually does speed up my workflow a little bit. So those are some of the new features. Again, I'm probably going to have a lot of people run into problems with it because there's no error checking at this point, but it's a very useful tool set. So thanks for watching, and I will be able to update this script sometime next week with some nice error checking.